So, a very long time ago, I'd say around 3 or so decades ago, I was one of the workers at the Walt Disney Corporation, paid to convert classic Disney films digitally. I'm not disclosing my identity in order to protect myself from getting potentially sued by the company for disclosing confidential information. The story I'm about to tell is about the time I was requested by Disney to carefully select unreleased Mickey Mouse films and convert them digitally to sell to hardcore collectors. This one, however, was a very strange case. One fateful day, I'd say around the summer of 1996, I was called into work by my manager. When I arrived at my station, the manager had given me a list of things I needed to do for work, so I carefully read it over. There was one objective I was pretty excited to do, at first, which was to select Mickey Mouse films that Walt Disney had previously never fully released, convert them digitally, and hand them in to corporate for approval. This sounded pretty fun, after all. There were some pretty interesting films that Walt had either never released or flat out scrapped. I walked into the Walt Disney Archives, where all of these films were being preserved. I had collected a couple of films to convert with some help. But then I eyed a very interesting film. The title read Mickey Mouse Walking Test, a film that Walt allegedly made for animators to reference when making the films, so it was never publicly released as a result. I thought, this could be an interesting addition, so with some assistance, I added the film to the collection. When I got back to my station, I decided to start with converting Mickey Mouse Walking Test, since why the hell not, I said to myself. So I put the film into the film scanner and got to work. That's when things got strange. After 2 long hours of letting the scanner do its work, I opened the resulting video file and gave it a watch. The film opened up with the text, Mickey Mouse Walking Test, in white text on a black background, followed by, viewing of this film outside the animation department is strictly prohibited, with copyright, it's hard to remember, but I think it was, 1932, Walt Disney Animation Studios, in small text at the bottom. And then the film abruptly began. It opened up with Mickey walking through a building with the usual cheery smile on his face. The music had that Mickey Mouse short feel to it. At around the 2-minute mark, Mickey's happy-go-lucky facial expression started to subtly wane as the piano started to play in a minor key, subtly slowing down in the process. In fact, Mickey went from happy about everything on the planet to a more natural, neutral expression, with the piano playing appropriately like so. Then the film cut out for a brief period of time. At this point, I had checked the time bar to make sure it hadn't been messed up, but nope, just a couple of black frames for around 10 seconds before cutting back to the video. Mickey was back to his happy facial expressions and mannerisms as if sudden change in his expression never happened, but the music was still somewhat dismal. However, Mickey's sudden shift in mannerisms looked forced, as if he was trying to think positively, as made evident by the occasional twitch in his eye. However, it appeared to be no use, as Mickey would then return to that neutral expression. Passersby stopped appearing, and the buildings Mickey was passing by stopped appearing. Mickey would then have a fearful expression on his face as he realized he was going nowhere and attempted to run back to the start. The music stopped at that point, and there was nothing playing. Mickey would hit the edge of the left side of the screen and fall backwards cartoonishly, as you would expect from a film this old. Mickey would then get back up and realize that he was trapped and had no choice but to continue walking. His eyes welled up for a second, but he shook it off and continued walking nowhere, in plain silence. Mickey's facial expressions and mannerisms had become a bit of a mood killer, as he had gone from happy to neutral to rather unhappy. It was just that and dead silence for the next minute and a half. Once again, there was a short cut to black. Another 10 seconds passed by, and it cut back to Mickey walking. He was starting to become anxious and began picking up the pace of his walking speed. He looked around frantically every so often and started jogging a bit. Music had then started playing again. Played a tune that did not at all fit the tone of the current situation, creating a conflicting tone in the process. Mickey would then trip over a rock, and just before he hit the ground, another cut to black. Jesus, bees. I started to get annoyed at the third cut to black and skipped straight to the next second. But the time bar said that it was 30 seconds long. 30 seconds of a black screen. I just did not have that kind of patience, so I skipped ahead and anticipated what Mickey was going to be put through next. Mickey got back up and noticed that he was back at the start, but the town was completely empty. He started to walk with caution and fear, clearly losing trust in his own judgment as he kept going. Everything around him appeared as if it was struck with a bomb blast, which freaked him out even more. He started running through the town frantically, hoping to find someone. Anyone, but nobody. That's when he gave up. He fell onto his knees in the middle of the town square and started to break down laughing, with tears eventually streaming down his face. He fell to his side and just kept going for a bit, realizing that he was on his own and nobody was left. He then got back up, wiped his face, with whatever emotion he had left basically gone. He just kept walking. Mickey would then start to smile again, but not like the legitimate happiness in the beginning or the forced happiness in the middle, but in a sense that he was starting to go mad. He started seeing things that weren't there as he kept walking. He started hearing voices that said, "Run," which is exactly what he did. He started to break down into a nervous sweat as the hallucinated figures started exchanging glances at him, causing him to sprint as if his life depended on it. He tried to reach the city limits like he had done earlier, but then noticed that it would deliberately go further away from him. Mickey then stopped running. He fell backwards and just sat there, with all sorts of imagery appearing in his head, almost like a flashback. He had covered his hands with his face and started to cry. And 1 moment later, he had a look of pure insanity. He got back up and started trudging around the town, with buildings appearing more and more erect as he passed them by, and the hallucinations only getting stronger as he took a step. Nothing was right anymore, but Mickey couldn't realize this. His sense of judgment was completely gone, and he accepted his fate. After 1 more minute of walking with distressing music to accompany this, Mickey collapsed on the ground from exhaustion as he could no longer continue. The hallucinations all surrounded him, then sharply turned to face the viewer. The film made a bunch of nasty rough cuts all at once, and then cut to the end screen commonly used in Walt Disney films at the time, The End, a Walt Disney Productions, and then the music abruptly stopped. The video would make that weird effect where it would rapidly spin vertically, and then abruptly ended. I sat there, staring at the VLC icon, trying to process what the hell I just watched. My manager walked back in and noticed my expression. "Hey," she said. I snapped out of my daze and looked at her. "Yes, ma'am," I replied swiftly, still looking puzzled by whatever fever dream that film was. "Are you doing alright? You look like you just saw a ghost," she commented. "Well, I found a pretty bizarre tape that I just converted, and I think something's wrong with it," I replied. The manager decided to watch the film herself, and after finishing doing so, she looked distressed. "We need to report this to corporate," she had said with a slight tremor in her voice. So I burnt the conversion into a disc and put it into a case. After reporting it to corporate, I was immediately called over to discuss this tape. "It has come to our attention that you found the Mickey Mouse walk test tape," said the guy across the table sternly. "Yes, sir," I replied. "Yes, I did." The air became slightly tense when his expression changed. He slid me a contract and a pen. It was an NDA. "By signing this contract, you are hereby forbidden from releasing this video to the public, nor talking about it as long as you work for the company. Do I make myself clear?" I replied with, "Yes, sir," and signed it reluctantly, then was excused to leave the room. Before deleting the video file, I put the film on a second disc and stuffed it into my coat pocket. I then deleted the file and started converting other videos to digital. Unfortunately, I would then get told that the objective was cancelled due to the other tape not having survived the test of time, making it hard for my converter to do its work. I would then depart from the company and take the disc home when the 90s came to an end. I have the film with me, and I plan to upload it soon. The NDA has been long expired, but there's a chance that they will sue me if I release it. I'm willing to take that risk, but I need some time to get the whole thing fully put together before uploading it.